that you're tuning in today, wherever you are. My name's Phil Dahl. I'm the youth pastor here, and I'm with my friend and boss, Martin, the senior minister. Friend, how are you?
Yeah, good. And it's great to welcome you to this OBC News broadcast midweek, and then, of course, on Sunday morning before the service. And wherever you are, welcome to you. And I hope that you're blessed by what we have to share.
Yeah,
because someone is joining us.
Yeah, we've had a couple of celebrities, but we're going international today, aren't we?
Yeah, we certainly are. With one of our deacons and one of our dear members. His name is Tim Williams, and many of you will know Tim and his wife, Adun, and family. But welcome to you, Tim. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, Phil.
Hello, my friend.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So lovely to see you.
Hey, Tim, many people kind of known you through the years, but they may not have known what you do professionally. And let's reveal it to them, because for many years you've worked for the Commonwealth Office in different countries, haven't you? Tell us something about that.
That's right. By profession, I am an agricultural economist. I had a doctorate degree in agricultural economics from Oxford University a long time ago. I think before Phil was born. Sorry.
You're too nice. I'm nearly 40, mate.
And my career has been varied in some sense. I worked at the Commonwealth Secretariat, as you mentioned, for 7 years as the head of the Enterprise and Agriculture section at the Commonwealth Secretariat, which was really a privilege because in that position, I coordinated the technical assistance to 49 Commonwealth developing countries across the world in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and South Pacific. And after leaving that job, I took up a position as director for Africa at an international research organization called International Water Management Institute. And again, in that position, I was responsible for coordinating the research activities and providing oversight for our work in the 54 member states of the African Union. So that's my background.
And you tried to retire, I think, Tim, didn't you? But they weren't having it, and they invited you back, and you moved actually, I think, from a concentration on Africa to a concentration on the Caribbean, and you're working with the countries of the Caribbean now.
That's correct. When I retired in 2019, I thought I was entering a season of easy life. Wake up in the morning, read the newspapers, have an afternoon nap, and then wait for my wife's dinner. But it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way. Immediately I finished, everybody kept asking me, "What are you going to be doing now? What are you going to be doing now?" And I said, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" I thought this is retirement. I should be putting up my feet.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out. So I'm now a consultant to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization with a special responsibility to help out in Dominica, which is a Commonwealth small state island in the Eastern Caribbean, to transform the agricultural sector in order to make it more resilient and sustainable over time to climate hazards, as well as other natural disasters. Dominica is a very small island with a total population of about 74,000 people. But it's a very beautiful island. Actually, it's called Nature Island. in the Caribbean.
Lovely.
It's of volcanic origin, and that means it is rugged and very steep topography, which exposes the agricultural sector to all sort of problems. And a few years back, Dominica used to be very prosperous and was an important banana exporter to the rest of the world. But over the years, due to climate change, as well as other vulnerabilities, the competitiveness of Dominica in producing banana as an export has declined. And as a result, there is an increasing level of poverty, especially in the rural areas. And my responsibility, together with government officials in Dominica, is to help bring about a change in reducing vulnerability, and most importantly, in altering the adaptive and transformative capacities of people and communities, so that although we cannot control climate events, we can work to reduce people's vulnerability. We can work to improve their resilience. And in that way, we can bring about a change in the way agriculture is being practiced so that it's more sustainable and resilient to climate risks and hazards. So that's in a short way.
Wow. Tim, have you been doing this role since the pandemic started, or were you doing it before?
No, actually, just at the beginning of the pandemic, that was when I was contracted to do this.
Yeah.
And the plan was for me to go out and spend about a year in Dominica, but the pandemic put an end to all that. So we're doing the work online and remotely.
Tim, I was looking forward to coming to visit you pastorally in Dominican Republic, to be honest.
Yes. And I was actually, you were the first person I was going to extend an
thank
Oh,
you.
come
Oh,
on,
Tim.
Tim.
Thank you.
You don't have to say that just because he's here.
And Tim, we thought that, and I think I'm right, you're one of the best people to speak about international need at the moment, because understandably our government is kind of focused on the vaccine for our own country, but becoming aware of great need around the world, and indeed a new kind of poverty that we might not have talked about before, and that's vaccine poverty, because in many of the developing countries, they're not seeing a rollout of vaccine, or not getting their hands on the vaccine, partly because of poor infrastructure in the past, and partly just because of poverty. How is what's your view on that? Is that correct? What do you see from a professional point of view?
That's a correct assessment of the situation in many developing countries. And to understand the genesis of that problem, I think we need to step back a little bit, because many poor countries entered the pandemic in a very poor state. Many poor countries entered the pandemic with a high debt burden, which absorbed much of their income, leaving very little for health care and other basic necessities. And on top of that, the global recession that has occurred as a result of the pandemic has slashed the demand for exports of countries like Zambia that export copper, and other countries like Nigeria that export oil to the rest of the world. So again, their level or capacity to be able to provide medical care for their populace has declined. And as a result, the level of the pandemic in these countries is really pretty high, resulting in many fatalities. Now that the vaccine has been developed and people are looking forward to receiving a palliative measure, we've suddenly realized this phenomenon called vaccine nationalism, in which the wealthy countries and let's not forget that they are actually the developer of this vaccine, so they have the first call on it. But the issue is that studies after studies have now indicated that unless we can guarantee a secure global access to vaccines, nobody can feel secure. So although many countries are not able, poor countries are not able to get their hands on vaccine now, it's absolutely important that the vaccine be made globally accessible to all countries to bring this pandemic to an end. And more importantly also, it is an economic investment. It's not, I think the debate so far has been framed in terms of moral or charitable, in moral terms. But a new study has just shown that no economy can recover fully until all economy have equally recovered. So there is a health imperative as well as an economic reason for making sure that all nations have access to vaccines.
Yes. And Tim, in your work, especially in agriculture, with developing countries, have you seen the effects of global warming making it even more difficult for the poor around the world in poor communities struggling with that? Has that been something that is a growing concern?
It is indeed a growing concern, and studies after studies have shown that the worst effects of climate change will be felt in developing countries, and mostly by people who are already in poverty. So it's like a double whammy for poor people in poor nations. For the past 5 years, a large swathe of Southern Africa, countries in that region have experienced drought, and simultaneously flooding in countries like Mozambique, Malawi. So you have a cycle of drought followed by flooding and again drought, which leaves many poor farmers really in dire state. Climate change is also bringing about an increase in pest infestation. Early last year, before the pandemic set in East Africa, there was a huge swarm of desert locusts that invaded that region of the world. And desert locusts are very, very destructive. In a matter of a single day, they can destroy almost 100 kilometers of farmland, stripping it completely bare. So these are the effects of climate change, and we need to continue to raise our voice and to our leaders to be able to come to the aid of developing countries by mitigating the adverse effects of climate change. And if I may add, this year, 2021, the United Kingdom in Glasgow will be hosting COP26. That is a United Nations Climate Summit. And leaders around the world will converge in Glasgow to make decisions on what to do to mitigate the effects of climate change. And so we have an opportunity in this country to make a views known to our MPs and to our government, to be able to rally around world leaders to make commitments that will reduce the negative effects of climate change around the world.
And Tim, as you know, because you're such a committed member here at OBC, along with Dawn, your wife, as a church, we're committed to making a difference in the world through our mission partners and through the work that we do. Not just looking inwards, but very much looking outwards, not just to the community, but to the nations beyond, that we might bless the nations as the Lord Jesus told us to do, to reach out. Do you feel that? Do you think that's a vital aspect of our ministry at OBC, or do you see it as something that's just periphery? I've a bit of a leading question there, Tim, but feel free to answer it honestly and just tell us what you think.
It is an aspect of our ministry that really gladdens my heart, because as Christians, we are enjoined to, I think in Galatians 6, verse 9, it asks us not to become weary in doing good, and that in due course we will reap the harvest of what we do. And I think also in Proverbs, I think Proverbs 11:25, it says, whoever refreshes others will also be refreshed. And so the aspect of our ministry, the outward looking aspect, is really following the example laid by Jesus Christ. First in saying, I think in Matthew 28:19, therefore go out and make disciples of all nations. And I think our support to BMS missionaries in Bangladesh, in Czech Republic, and in Zambia follow the precepts laid down by Christ. And it's one aspect that really makes me very proud of OBC. We are taking very seriously our commitments to our community here in Orpington, in Bromley, as well as reaching out to other parts of the world where our help is needed. So I think as we look forward to the post-pandemic period, I think we need to continue making the effort that we've been making over the years to ensure that our ministry continues to be outward looking, as well as caring for the less fortunate among us, both here in the UK and elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, Tim, even in this time where we're in a lockdown, and I think we're quite guilty at times of being a bit inward looking, because through fear we're worried about ourselves, but we can still see and read about all over the world there's Christians that are being persecuted for standing up for Jesus, and we stand alongside them, and we do one of our mission outreaches is with Release International. What have you seen many countries suffer hugely in these times, or do you think it's still under the radar and not recognized?
Phil, I think that is a very important question, particularly during this period of the pandemic. We see in many countries in Africa, in Asia, where believers are denied basic necessities and the food aid coming into the country from outside because they're Christians and they're not part of the local faith community. So for instance, in many parts of Africa, and also in countries like Asia and Sri Lanka, where I've worked before, if you do not belong to the Buddhist or the Hindu faith, you're denied basic necessities. And when food and medications are distributed during this pandemic, they are shut out.
Goodness me.
My native country, where I originated from in Nigeria, the Boko Haram extremists, as well as the Islamic State West Africa Province chapter, are a menace to the Christians. And I believe the encouragement that Christians, persecuted Christians in these countries receive from those who are free to worship is tremendous and should not be underestimated. Because when your communities, when your families are not able to help you, or you are even chased out of your village or community, but others miles and miles away think of you, pray for you, and send aid to you, it invigorates you and makes you feel that you belong to a fellowship that is caring and that can bring about a change. Let me tell a quick story. In Sri Lanka, where I used to work, there was this Buddhist village where children are not allowed to learn anything about Christianity. But as a local pastor who was determined to bring about an understanding of the Bible to the children in that community, but he wasn't making much success at all until the pandemic struck. And when the pandemic struck, what it did was to provide little aid that it could get from organizations like Release International, Open Doors, and started distributing it to families in need. And when their parents saw what was going on, their own faith leaders weren't doing anything, then they started asking questions. Who are these people? Why are they doing this? And through that, they're now saying that children can go to Bible classes and understand more about this religion. So that, again, is a very practical example of how what Christians and international organizations like Tear Fund, Release International do, and BMS can really help to spread the gospel.
Fantastic.
That's great, Tim. And it's great to have you with us today, sharing your insights into the needs of the world, and with you and with your church. We do so commit ourselves to not being inward looking. A real danger of these days is that individually and as a nation we can be understandably in some ways self-absorbed, but that's not the will of God for us. And that's not the way of fullness of life. The way of fullness of life is to look upwards to the Lord in love of Him, and to look outwards to our neighbours, and our neighbours include all those that across the world. Tim, it's been really great speaking with you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you, Phil.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Tim. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bless you.
And you too. Bye-bye.
That was great, wasn't it, Phil? That was lovely.
It's amazing, and it's
Tim.
You know what? It's actually so important as well, because I think you're touching it towards the end. In these times, through fear and from the pandemic, we've become a nation that's so worried about ourselves, and we don't want to step outside. We don't want to pass the virus on, so we're not going to go out, and so on and so forth. And we forget about the world.
Yeah.
And this is a global problem.
Yeah.
And so it's just vital and so important to hear from Tim as well. Because we continue to do lots ourselves as a church, and be involved in so many different things mission-wise, don't we, Martin?
It's a great joy.
It is absolutely, and it's vital. It's absolutely vital, and it's, I don't think I'd enjoy my job at the church as much if we didn't do as much. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always been for me something, a really key thing about ministry. People may not think of it straight away, but if you're asked to, about the work of a minister. But I think one of the key things for me about ministry is blessing the world, of being partners with others around the world who own the name of Christ, to really helping communities that are vulnerable and in need, and to sharing the gospel around the world with people that don't know his love yet.
Yeah.
And we've got an example of it, haven't we, Phil?
I have, yeah. This is beautiful. When was this sent to you, Martin? It was the start of the week,
yesterday.
wasn't it?
Actually, this was yesterday in Zambia, and they sent it straight away. So a little film of our mission project and the children singing to us there in Kabwe in Zambia. We've supported them for some years, and we pay for a nurse, for instance, for the school, and we've built classrooms and a borehole there, and done other things. Phil, along with me, is a trustee of the charity that supports them, called the Silverwood Trust in the UK. And here they are, led by Mutinta, who is kind of mother to them all, really, singing and bringing greetings to Orpington Baptist Church. I hope you enjoy it.
The message of the Lord, we are gathered here today by the mercy of the Lord. We are gathered here today by the mercy of the Lord. Swallow Ghana, Ilelo.
As pupils at Ruftuga Primary School, we want to thank Ovington Baptist Church of UK through Mrs. Mwanayanda for building us a new classroom in this period of coronavirus. May God bless you. Amen.